Hi there. Today, I wanted to talk to you about family wounds and generational forgiveness. I was having a conversation with someone about healing family wounds, which I've been able to do in our family. And so I wanted to share this with you to see if it resonates. Family can be our greatest source of joy, right? But a lot of times, most of the time, it's where our deepest wounds come from. And many of our familial conflicts, right? Familial, that's a tough word. Conflicts, they're not just about the present. They're tied to unresolved, often inherited past issues. These old wounds can affect how we connect. This is how relatives become distant and how family misunderstandings and hurt happen. How many of those have you had, especially around the holidays, right? But there is good news. We do not have to stay stuck in these patterns. Thank God. Generational forgiveness can heal old wounds. It can bring peace to ourselves and our families. Let's chat about that. Hi, I'm Brenda Reese, freedom and forgiveness coach, and a person just like you that is learning to navigate life and all of its challenges. I teach a forgiveness process like no other. It's a blend of practical and spiritual forgiveness. This process guides you into knowing how unforgiveness can be keeping you stuck in your relationships, both personally and professionally, and how it prevents you from releasing resentment and finding joy. Each week, I share practical and some not so practical tips, tools, and advice from myself and other people that are on this journey just like us. This is for you if you are ready to turn your pain into peace. Welcome to the Forgive Yourself podcast. So, what exactly is generational forgiveness? Now, it's a little different from everyday forgiveness like we might think of. While individual forgiveness is about letting go of a specific event or an action, generational forgiveness goes deeper. Sometimes it goes several generations back. It looks at family conflicts, right? The family conflicts that I'm going to call it like sitting under the surface, those ones that are buried in the boxes. You may not even have been born when these things happened. Those old family secrets, right? That aren't talked about. It's like, have you seen that movie, the Disney movie Encanto, where they sing about, we don't talk about Bruno? Yeah, it's like that. Sometimes these generational wounds have gone on for decades. It can be an argument that escalated and never got reconciled. Someone was in love with someone else, right? There was this secret that no one talked about. That's happened with my grandmother. Or even cultural and societal expectations that have been passed down that have created great tension. So whatever it looks like for you, whether it is, I guess I'm going to say too, with these DNA tests coming out, right? Where all of a sudden, this isn't the father, right? That happens in my family. It happens in several of my clients' families. So whatever this looks like, these unresolved issues can create emotional distance between family members, often without even us realizing it. This happened also in my family where one sister wasn't talking to the other sister for decades. They didn't even remember why. And one of them said they ended up figuring it out. One of them stole the boyfriend, and which wasn't even really the boyfriend way back, right? But they held on to that grudge. So when we look at generational forgiveness, it helps us break free from these patterns, these beliefs, these cycles, allowing us to create healthy relationships now and in the future. It is the first step to creating family harmony. It can, and good memories for the future. And that's really what generational forgiveness is about. It is about the present, but it's really about let's move forward and not have these same patterns in our lives. We all know how exhausting it can be when there's unspoken tension in the room, right? It's like a ice cold breeze fills the air, or it's like, you feel so tense. Have you had that where you feel so tense that you could, like they always say, you could cut it with a knife? Everyone feels on edge. There's no real enjoyment. Everybody's just usually drinking a lot to get through it. Unresolved family issues usually don't just disappear. They hang around, affecting how we communicate, or really how we don't communicate, which is more likely. It affects how we connect and even how we feel about ourselves, let alone each other. Now, over time, this emotional baggage, right, gets heavier and heavier, and it does lead to strained relationships. The conversations get shorter and shorter. You connect less. Gatherings start feeling really weird. And eventually, you don't even want to attend anymore. Generational wounds go deep. Unresolved conflicts can perpetuate harmful patterns. So, for example, a parent may pass down a tendency to react with anger if they grew up in a household where that was a go-to response. Right? So this creates a cycle of emotional reactivity. How many of us, I'm raising my hand, how many of us were born into or had experienced a household of anger, or a household of walking on eggshells, or a household of where it was just like we knew if we heard the stories, right, of our parents' parents and their parents' parents, it was probably passed down. I know it was, like in my father's case. He wasn't a father because his father didn't know how to father and his father. And it's not making an excuse. It's just understanding that this is not just a one-time thing. Generational conflicts cause harm to our mental health. It increases anxiety and depression in family members who may not understand the source of those feelings, right? They don't understand that it's been around forever, or even how it started. Healing these wounds isn't just about fixing today's problems. It is about breaking the cycle. And that is where we can let future generations grow in a more loving, understanding environment when we break the cycle. So generational forgiveness isn't something that happens overnight, right? Of course, I know you know that. It is a process, and I know you've heard me say this before. Like most healing journeys, it takes time, effort, and it takes a willingness to have an open heart. Now, I said willingness, right? Which is the number one word in forgiveness. So there are a few steps we can take, right, to help us through this process, or at least get this process started. The first step is acknowledging something deeper going on. This means recognizing the conflicts passed down and understanding their origins, like I was just talking about. Maybe, like in my case, understanding my father's 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 fathers, right? Maybe, in some cases, I've had some clients talk about it's a family argument that's never been resolved, right? And there's too much pride. It's like, no, I'm not going to be the one. They're going to be the one. They have to say, I'm sorry. Right? Or maybe it's a behavior pattern that's rooted in past trauma that no one talks about anymore. It'll feel weird, right? But it has to come out into the open. So number one is acknowledging something deeper going on, doing a little investigation. Number two, the second step is once you've recognized the issue, it's important to actually cultivate empathy for these past generations. Understanding, that's why I think knowing our family history is really helpful, because it does help us with some empathy. Because understanding what previous generations went through, their struggles, their traumas, can often soften the anger or the hurt that we have or other people have. This right here, just that alone, can be so healing. Everyone is shaped by their experiences. And when we offer compassion to those who came before us, it can shift our perspective in powerful ways. And that's what forgiveness is about, shifting our perspective. The most important thing to remember is that people in the past were likely doing the best they could with the situation they had. It's very true. Now, of course, I'm not condoning bad behavior. It's not about that at all. It is just acknowledging that they may have been doing the best they could. And it's remembering to give grace, because that can go a long way in helping heal old family wounds. Now, step number 3 is about having open, honest communication, which is very key. Open, honest communication. Now, this part can feel very scary. Trust me. I know that, especially if you're the first to bring up an issue buried for a long time. So it's likely what prevents generational wounds from being forgiven, right? This is it. Because few people want to do the hard work of the talking. Usually there's a lot of pride in here, like I mentioned earlier. It's important to create space for everyone to share their feelings. So we can do this by starting with curiosity and a willingness to listen without judgment. Just keeping in mind a willingness to listen, because the ultimate goal is healing. Now, in this 4th step, this is where we can bring in forgiveness. Now, see, we don't jump to forgiveness, right? There's work we've got to do before forgiveness, because forgiveness is a choice. You've heard me talk about this before. It doesn't mean excusing bad behavior or pretending that the hurt didn't happen. It's about letting go of the anger and resentment that is keeping you and family members stuck. It's a way of really acknowledging within yourself, I'm not going to carry this pain anymore. I'm not going to let this color my family's future. Or it's encouraging maybe someone you love to go, do you really want to carry this pain? Is this really worth it to you? Because remember, we suffer. The other people don't. And after forgiveness, in the 5th step, comes reconciliation. Maybe. Now, reconciliation is about rebuilding trust and strengthening family bonds. Usually, it won't happen all at once, and that's okay. With time and effort, you can create a stronger, healthier connection. Forgiving others is more for you than anyone else, and you'll know you did your best toward reconciliation when you feel like you took the steps like we talked about earlier. Now, why I said maybe about reconciliation is that in some cases, reconciling is not safe. And that's okay too. Sometimes other family members do not wish to reconcile. And we get to let them have that. We're not in charge of their experience. This is about honoring each other and knowing that generational work can be done through us. They do not have to be in agreement. We can change the patterns. We can initiate the conversations, and we can do our best to heal ourselves and any patterns that is showing up. In my family, we had a pattern of sexual abuse. And, I heard once it says, all it takes is one person stepping forward in a generation to do the work that it takes to heal a pattern. And I took that to heart. The beauty of this is that with the generations, it happened to me, it happened to my sister, it happened to my mother, it happened to her mother, it happened so many cases that we don't even know about. But it goes back quite a ways from what I can understand. And through doing this work, through doing the forgiveness work, recognizing the pattern and doing the healing work, initiating some conversations, discovering the past, finding out, having empathy and compassion for what came before me, my grandchildren today don't have this pattern. And that is a frickin' miracle, which is a shift of perception. I am really grateful for being able to step forward and do the work, even though most of these people involved are dead. So you make a difference. you can change the pattern. Now, let's talk about maybe some practices here for facilitating some generational forgiveness. Because healing these old wounds often requires more than just good intentions and hard work. So it takes some practices that can help you and your family work through generational forgiveness. So here are some suggestions that I've used and other people that I've worked with have used, my clients, and see what resonates with you. The first one is a family meeting. Organizing a family meeting can be really a great way to get everyone on the same page, right? They can ask questions. Everybody gets the same answers. Not everybody will hear the same way. Trust me on that. But at least you're facilitating an open environment, because these discussions allow family members to express their feelings. They can share their own perspectives, and they can start working through the issues that have been lingering around. But it's important when you do this family meeting to set ground rules for respectful communication before you begin so that everyone feels safe. Now, the second one, which is in conjunction with the first one, is about mediation and therapy, because sometimes family issues are too complex to navigate alone. And we all kind of know if it is or not. So seeking help from a family therapist or a mediator can provide a neutral space where everyone feels heard. So, we had used, when we did a family meeting, we used a mediator, right? But therapists can also be really helpful because they can guide the conversation productively. And a lot of them offer that. The third one is something I talk about a lot because there is science behind it. And that is journaling and letter writing. So, because as we talked about an episode or two ago, that how powerful writing can be. It's a powerful tool for you, right? But it's also for family members who find it hard to express their feelings out loud. So I would encourage your family, or you can, if you so choose, encourage your family to journal about their experiences or write letters to each other about how they feel. Putting thoughts and feelings into words can bring clarity, and it does help release pent up emotions. Of course, we have guidelines because we're not about attacking each other. This is the other thing that's really important, is really good, in the critical conversations or difficult conversations, they talk about setting some ground rules. Very important. Not attacking, using I statements, those type of things. Now, the fourth one is storytelling. Sharing family stories can help to bridge the gap between generations. Now, what I noticed in my family is that there wasn't a lot of these stories, passed down. And I was feeling like I didn't understand what was going on. They just says like, shh, don't talk about it. It's like, we don't talk about Bruno, right? And I sought it out. I had to search. I had to talk to distant relatives that I could find, or friends and things like that, because some people in my family didn't want to talk about it. The more we can learn about past generations and what they went through, you can't help but gain a new understanding and even empathy for their actions and struggles. It also helps create a connection as you realize how your family's history has shaped who you are today. And that was with my grandmother. Oh my gosh, I did not like it. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, when she came to visit, it was horrible. She was grumpy and she was critical all the time. And I didn't realize. And then through the stories, I found this out after her death, that she was married to my grandfather. She wasn't in love with my grandfather. She was in love with his brother. But because in that time period, they needed to marry for the reasons, that they did back then, as far as taking care of the family members. And she was the eldest, he was the eldest. So it was almost like they actually were supposed to get married. And there wasn't love there. After my grandpa died, she was a happy woman. It was amazing to experience. And I just couldn't understand it till I searched out the story. Maybe that's happening in your life. What are some of the things that you're noticing that you don't have the story around? All right, I digress here a little bit. All right, and then the fifth one is something not everyone likes to do, yet for some, it is very healing, and that is creating some sort of ritual or family ceremony. Now, this can be meaningful to mark the healing process together. It could be something as simple as a family dinner where everyone shares something they're grateful for, or it could be around lighting candles to represent letting go of past hurts. The other thing is that's really good. Fire is also very transforming. So writing forgiveness letters or what it is that, or the hurt or the pain that you want to let go of and burning them together can be really helpful. You can get super creative on this. So there are challenges in generational forgiveness. So I'm not saying that this process is easy at all. It can be very challenging. Family dynamics, as we talked about in other episodes, is complicated because, well, people are people. And we have our own ideas and biases and hurts that color how we see ourselves and each other and the world. It's normal to face resistance, especially if family members don't want to revisit those old wounds. Some may feel defensive, while others may not want to stir up the past pain no matter what the cost they are experiencing. Some people really hold on to grudges because they are afraid of who they are without those grudges. And it's common to struggle with deeply ingrained beliefs that make forgiveness seem impossible. But it's not. What I will say is it's important to remember that healing can take time. Be patient with yourself and your family. Even if progress is slow, each tiny step forward matters. It really does. And creating a supportive environment where family members feel safe to express their feelings is the key to connection. Safety is important. And as you show up with empathy and a willingness to listen, there will be progress made. So, in conclusion, I want to share that when families commit to generational forgiveness, the benefits are life-changing. It really helped change our family. Relationships strengthen. Families share things that only family members can, right? Family members feel like they belong to something bigger when we all come together to heal. And that helps them develop greater emotional resilience and peace. But even better is that forgiveness also helps break the cycle for future generations, like I shared about my family. When you facilitate healing old wounds, you create a healthier environment for the next generation to grow up in, one rooted in love, understanding, and connection. Who doesn't want that? I mean, I want that right now, right? That's really my motivator for talking about forgiveness and teaching forgiveness and transformation and love. It is about that. Generational forgiveness offers families the chance to heal together. Families together can break free from the patterns of the past, and they can create a brighter, happy future for all. When we are brave enough to face old generational wounds head on, we create the opportunity for deeper connections and peace within ourselves and our family at every generational level. I am so grateful that we've been able to spend this time together. Thank you. Oh, and in case you need a reminder, you are worthy of forgiveness. You are. I believe that forgiveness is love in action, with yourself first, and then with others. Until next time, take care. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did enjoy it, would you do me a favor and share this episode and then follow us on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss one episode of the Forgive Yourself podcast, where every Friday you will get tips, tools, and stories so that you can turn your pain into peace. Take care.